Ever wonder what your job might look like in 10 years? Or if you'll even have the same job?
Hmm. Scary thought, right?
Yeah, definitely something to think about. So today, we are going to dive into an IELTS reading passage all about how artificial intelligence will impact the future of work.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it's got some pretty eye-opening predictions. Like, did you know that one business consultancy thinks that something like 3 to 14% of the global workforce will need to switch occupations within the next 10 to 15 years?
Wow, that is a lot of people. And I mean, it makes sense, right? We all see the headlines about AI changing things.
Totally. And this passage gets into some of the specifics, how it's not just factory workers being replaced by robots.
Right. Yeah.
AI is impacting all kinds of jobs, even things like healthcare and law and finance.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just look at how doctors are using AI for diagnosis now, or how lawyers are using it to analyze contracts.
It's kind of mind blowing. And the passage actually talks about two different types of AI embodied AI, which is like the robots we see in movies, and then disembodied AI, which is more like the algorithms that are running in the background on our smartphones.
Huh. So like the stuff we don't really see, but is like constantly working behind the scenes.
Exactly. And the passage talks a lot about this idea of algorithmization, which is basically how algorithms are now doing tasks that used to require human judgment.
Oh, wow. So like taking over jobs that we thought only people could do.
Yeah, and sometimes even doing them better than us, which is a little unnerving.
I can imagine. Does
Yeah.
the reading get into like why organizations are so drawn to using these algorithms?
It does. It actually quotes a Dr. Stella Pacitti who says that organizations like them because they, quote, provide perfect information.
Perfect information.
Yeah, and of course, that leads to things like cost reduction and productivity boost because the algorithms are making supposedly perfectly informed decisions.
I see. So it makes sense from a business perspective, but
Hmm.
like where does that leave the human workers?
Well, that's a big question the passage brings up. Like, how do we even train experts in the future if AI takes over all the routine tasks?
Yeah, like imagine learning to be a doctor by just watching an algorithm do surgery.
Right. No human interaction, no real world experience.
It's a weird thought.
Yeah.
And what about the idea of AI controlling workers?
Well, yeah, the reading gives an example of a telecommunications company where the algorithm was actually telling the salespeople when and how to contact
Like
clients.
a robot boss.
Pretty much. And get this, the passage says that some of the workers even figured out how to game the system.
Really?
Yeah, they started feeding the algorithm false data so it looked like they were hitting their targets.
Oh, wow. Clever, but also like kind of a scary thought.
Definitely. So, I mean, we're seeing this tension between the efficiency of AI and the potential downsides for workers.
Yeah, it's a balancing act for sure.
And researchers are working on ways to make AI more transparent and trustworthy. But in the meantime, I think it's important for all of us to really understand these issues.
Absolutely. We need to be informed so we're to make the best choices for the future.
Definitely. But I mean, hearing all this, it's hard not to think like, are we all going to be replaced by robots? Is this the start of the robot apocalypse?
Well, actually, the passage presents an alternative view. An economist named Hamish Lowe argues that this idea of mass unemployment from AI is based on the assumption that the number of jobs is fixed.
Which might not be true.
Right. He thinks AI could actually create more jobs, just different types of jobs that require different skills.
Okay, so instead of less work, there's just different work.
Exactly. He uses this analogy. Imagine that in 30 years, robots are doing half of the work it takes to run the world. That doesn't necessarily mean 50% fewer
I
jobs.
see. It means the nature of work changes.
Right. And maybe even leads to more jobs overall, but different kinds of jobs.
Okay, so less robot apocalypse and more robot evolution.
That's a good way to put it. And actually, the passage brings up another interesting point from Dr. Ewan McGaughey, who says that it's not technology itself that causes unemployment.
Hmm. So what is it then?
He argues it's the social and economic policies we create around technology. Like, it's the rules of the game that determine whether people have opportunities or not.
Interesting. So we need to make sure the rules are fair in this new AI powered world.
Exactly. He's calling for bold policies that make sure everyone has a chance to thrive, even as AI changes the way we work.
Wow, a lot to think about already. What are your initial reactions to all this?
What strikes me is how important human skills seem to be becoming. If AI is going to be good at routine tasks and data analysis, what will set humans apart?
That's a fantastic question, and one we'll definitely explore further in part 2 of this deep dive. Stay tuned. So we were talking about how important human skills might become in this future, where AI is doing more and more.
Yeah, like what makes us special in a world where robots can do almost anything?
Right. And it seems like the reading points to things like creativity and critical thinking.
Oh, definitely. I mean, think about it. An algorithm might be able to write a report or analyze a spreadsheet,
Hmm.
but can it come up with a truly original marketing campaign or, I don't know, negotiate a really complex international treaty?
Those things need that human touch, right? That
Yeah,
spark of something.
exactly. They need ingenuity, intuition, all that stuff that AI, at least for now, just can't replicate.
And I guess it's not just about coming up with the big ideas, right?
Mm.
It's also about things like emotional intelligence, building relationships, all those soft skills.
Oh, for sure. AI might be able to process data like crazy,
Right.
but it can't really understand human emotions or motivations in the same way that we can.
It doesn't have that empathy piece.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So those human relationship skills are going to be super valuable.
makes sense. And I guess in this rapidly changing world, adaptability is key too, right? Being willing to learn new things all the time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. This isn't a learn one skill and you're set for life kind of situation anymore.
More like learn, unlearn, relearn.
Exactly. It's about having that growth mindset, always being curious, always ready for the next challenge.
So maybe instead of seeing AI as a threat, we should see it as a chance to like reinvent ourselves.
Yeah, embrace the change. Think of all the new possibilities it could open up.
It's kind of exciting in a way, right? To think about what we could become.
Definitely. And remember, we're all figuring this out together. It's not like anyone has all the answers yet.
True, true. But the passage does bring up something important, which is the ethics of all this.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
Like, as AI becomes more powerful, how do we make sure it's used responsibly?
Right. We need people who can think critically about the implications of all this technology.
Who can spot the potential problems before they become big problems?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, what about bias in algorithms? Or the possibility of AI making decisions that harm people?
Or even just the lack of transparency. Like, how do we know why an AI is making the choices it's making?
So many things to consider. It's not just about the technical stuff, it's also about the ethics.
We need people who are like AI watchdogs.
Yeah, making sure that AI is actually serving humanity, not the other way around.
And it makes you wonder what kind of jobs will even exist in this future. I mean, maybe we'll have like AI ethicists or AI
Oh,
therapists.
no, that's right. There could be jobs that we haven't even imagined yet.
The possibilities are kind of mind
I
blowing.
know. And that's why it's so important to stay curious, stay open to new ideas.
And not be afraid to adapt.
Right. Exactly. This isn't about resisting change. It's about shaping it, making sure it leads to a good outcome for everyone.
Okay, so, someone's listening to this and feeling totally overwhelmed by all this change.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
What advice would you give them? Like, where do they even start preparing for this AI powered future?
First of all, I'd say don't panic. It's easy to get caught up in the fear, but remember, change is also opportunity.
Easier said than done sometimes, but I get it.
And then I'd say start exploring. There are so many resources out there for learning new skills, whether it's online courses or boot camps or whatever.
And those are accessible to pretty much everyone, right? You don't need to be like a tech genius to get started.
Not at all. And I think just staying curious, reading about new technologies, networking with people in different fields, that can be really helpful too.
So basically, be proactive, take control of your own learning.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask questions, to reach out to people who are already working in the fields you're interested in.
Network, network, network.
Exactly. You never know where your next opportunity will come from.
So it's all about like having the right mindset,
Right.
being open to learning, being willing to adapt.
And remembering that this isn't a solo mission. We're all figuring this out together.
It's a team effort.
Exactly. And we've talked about the skills we need, the steps we can take, the possibilities out there. But there's still this big question looming. How do we make sure this future of work actually benefits everyone? How do we create a world where AI elevates humanity and doesn't leave anyone behind?
That is the big question, and it's one we'll tackle in part 3 of this deep dive. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we've talked about the skills we'll need in this AI-powered future and how to prepare for it. But now we need to talk about, I guess, the big elephant in the room.
Hmm. Which is,
How do we make sure all this benefits everybody, not just, the people who are already ahead?
right, how do we make sure it's fair?
Exactly. And the passage actually uses this phrase, bold new policies,
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
to guarantee like full employment and fair incomes, even with AI changing everything. What do you think some of those policies could be?
Well, one idea that's been floating around is this universal basic income thing, UBI.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Basically, it's like giving everyone a guaranteed minimum income no matter what, whether they're working or not.
Hmm, interesting. So even if your job gets like totally automated, you're
Yeah.
still okay. Exactly. It could be a safety net,
Yeah,
especially as AI starts doing more and more jobs that people are doing now.
that makes sense. Though I wonder, like, how do you even pay for something like that?
Right. That's the big question. And to be honest, UBI isn't like a perfect solution.
Of course, nothing's perfect.
We'd still need to invest in education and retraining so people can, keep learning new skills.
So it's not just about giving people money, it's about giving them opportunities too.
Exactly. We got to make sure that learning is accessible to everybody, no matter what their background is.
And that ties into that idea of multi-stage employment life that the passage talked about.
Oh, right, right. Where people might have like 5 different careers over their lifetime.
Yeah, with periods of like going back to school or retraining sprinkled in.
Exactly. That old model of, go to school, get a job, and do that job till you retire. That's probably not going to cut it anymore.
So we need to be flexible, basically.
Totally. Flexible and always willing to learn new things. And, this isn't just on individuals.
What do you mean?
Well, the passage talks about how important social dialogue is.
Oh, like actually talking to each other.
Yeah. Governments, businesses, workers, educators, everybody needs to be part of the conversation.
So it's a collaborative effort, basically.
Exactly. We need to work together to figure out how to make this work for everyone.
Not just letting like a few big tech companies decide everything.
Right. It's about shaping the future of work, not just letting it happen to us.
So at the end of the day, it's not about being afraid of AI, right?
No way.
It's about like embracing the possibilities and also making sure we're using it for good.
Exactly. We have the power to shape how this all unfolds, and that's pretty exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah.
And I think this reading has given us a lot to think about, the challenges, the opportunities.
Yeah, definitely not a simple topic.
But ultimately, it comes down to this. Are we going to let AI define our future? Or are we going to define AI's future?
Hmm. That's the question, isn't it?
And it's a question we all need to be asking ourselves. So, to everyone listening, think about it, talk about it, and most importantly, do something about it. The future is in our hands. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Stay curious, keep learning, and let's build a future of work that works for everyone.